Today we're going to be looking at standard RI.6.3, RI.7.3, and RI.8.3.
And standard RI.6.3 says, analyze in detail how a key individual, event, or idea is introduced, illustrated, and elaborated. So you have 3 parts through examples or anecdotes. And remember, an anecdote is a short story.
Now, 7th grade is very similar. Analyze the interactions between individuals, events, and ideas in a text. Now, this is the difference. You have to see how the ideas influence individuals or events, or how individuals influence ideas or events. So you have to be able to make the connection between the events and the people. So we're going to be looking at the questions from the Nigeria story. So let's look at question number 1. How does the author connect the rice dish jollof to groundnut stew? So let's look at our keywords first of all. So our verb here is how, and we're trying to see the connection between which 2 things? The dish jollof and groundnut stew. So you're trying to see a connection between these 2 different foods. So let's look at our choices. A, both dishes are described as foods that are preferred spicy. So we got to go see, are they both spicy? So I go back in the story, and I'm looking at paragraph 2 because that's where it talks about jollof. Well, in paragraph 2, does it say anything about them being spicy? Jollof being spicy. I don't see anything. If you reread it, I'm looking for that word spicy. But if I look in paragraph 3, I do see it says that this dish is preferred spicy. But remember, the question there, the answer choice said both dishes. Well, they're both not spicy, only groundnut stew is. So it cannot be answer choice A, so I would cross that choice out. So let's look at B. The author points out that they both have many variations. Well, we're looking for where they both have variations, meaning they can be used in different ways. So let's go see. Let's look at the first one. Let's look at jollof. Well, it talks about how it can be used in have rice, tomatoes, onions, and salt, but then it says the variations are endless. And then it talks about how some would have seafood with it and some would have beef and chicken. So there's a lot of variation there. Let's look at, make sure that let's look at the soup. Peanuts, tomatoes, onions. Then it says it can be used anything from goat and lamb to different kinds of beans and grains. So, and some can be spicy. So we see that both dishes and both ingredients can be used and have many variations. So I'm thinking the answer is B, because that's true, but you got to eliminate. Let's make sure. Let's look at C. The author explains that both are popular breakfast meals. Well, I remember looking at the story that jollof is popular for breakfast, but it does not say anything about that in paragraph 3 for groundnuts. So let's look at D. Both dishes usually contain rice and peanuts. Well, if you look in the story, I remember it talking about rice and peanuts somewhere, but if you notice, it's only with groundnuts. It does not say both. It says rice, but it does not say anything about peanuts for jollof. So you have to go in the story and look and find the evidence. But if you do that, you can easily see the answer had to be B. You had to make the connection there.
And it used the word variation in both paragraphs before.
It did.
For your evidence. All right, let's look at question 2. What distinction can you make between the diets of people in northern Nigeria? Okay, so we're looking at these people. Oh, my little writing tool. All right, northern Nigeria and people in southern Nigeria. Okay, a distinction is just what differences were between the 2. All right, so let's go back. Thank you. All right, so the first one says that people in southern Nigeria eat more chicken. Well, let's see if it said that. All right, so, right here, people in the southern part of the country may eat, it was seafood because they're near the Atlantic Ocean. All right, people in the north might choose to add beef or chicken. So look, ooh. All right, people in southern Nigeria eat more chicken. Is that what it said? No. All right, people in northern Nigeria eat more jollof. Well, let's look. Okay, so it says right here, they talk about Western Africa, it's the dish jollof, while those in the north might choose to add beef or chicken. And what did it say? what was the...
So they eat more. It doesn't say they eat more there at
Right.
all.
Mm-mm. People in southern Nigeria eat more seafood. Well, I remember seeing something about the seafood, and that was right here. People in the southern part may eat, it was seafood because they're near the Atlantic Ocean. All right, so I think my answer could be
I think that was a direct answer.
C, but let's look at D. You have to read all your choices. People in northern Nigeria eat fewer ground nuts. Well, did it say that? I don't see that anywhere. So it's important that you go back and you read all of your choices, because in this particular question, it said it pretty much word for word.
The direct answer.
Right there. So your answer would be people in southern Nigeria eat more seafood.
And for 7th grade, for 6, I think both in 6th and 7th, both of these kind of questions would apply.
Right.
Now, for 8th grade,
Okay, for 8th grade, it gets it gets different. How do I make it bigger? It goes into more detail. Analyze how text makes connections among and distinctions between individuals, ideas, or events. And the author is going to use comparisons, analogy, or categories. So today we're going to look at the same text, but we're going to look at an analogy. Okay. Number 3, explain the analogy in the account's title, The Many Faces of Nigerian Food. Discuss its purpose and cite examples of how the idea of Nigeria having many faces is present throughout the text. Use at least 2 details from the passage to support your response. Okay, we're going to have to look. What are they asking here? There's several things that you have to answer here. You're going to explain the analogy. You're going to discuss its purpose and cite examples. And you have to use 2 details. Now, what is an analogy? It's comparing one thing to another. Here, faces of Nigeria is being compared to the food. So let's look. Where's my, right here. Okay, let's look at this. An analogy is describing something by pointing out feature it has in common with something else. So in this passage, they are making an analogy between faces and Nigerian food. We have to ask ourselves, what do faces like on people have in common with Nigerian food? Well, one thing they tell you in the passage is that there's all different types of faces across Nigeria, just like there are all different types of the 2 variations of the foods, jollof and groundnut, what was it, rice? Groundnut rice? No. Stew. Groundnut stew and jollof. So they're all different variations. And several times the author uses endless variations. He uses that. The analogy, so we're going to look at our question. The analogy in the passage title means that the food of Nigeria differs as much as people's faces differ. Now, the food has the different varieties. The author also mentions that the country has many ethnic groups and varied geography, which are also the faces of Nigeria. And I need a quotation to close that. In paragraph 1, the author states that the many traditional dishes even tend to look different across the country, just like the faces across the country. He also discusses the different ways that jollof rice and groundnut soup are made throughout Nigeria. He says in paragraph 4 that the endless variations of these types of food throughout the country there are. Each version of these dishes are as unique as the person that cooks them. Now, if we'll go back real quick, let me look at something.
The third one, number 3.
Okay, if we go back, you'll see all throughout that he introduces it with the ethnic groups and the faces, but all throughout he talks about the endless variations. The variations are endless. So I think it's really important to play up on that because that's how he used his analogy.